We've got Mr. Adetokunbo Obayan, who is a leadership consultant. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Always a pleasure.
Well, again, we're looking at the way things are unfolding in the country. Only recently, we did hear from Mr. Femi Adesina about the APC governors who was reported to have visited the president in London. And then questions were raised again about how some of these things are handled. Many are thinking, well, is that the best way possible that he could have handled it? Is this having any impact on leadership, and as a result, the way the country is going? So, you, leadership consultants, from your perspective, how do you see all this unfolding?
Well, it's been quite a saga that has lasted for, on and off for the last 6 months as a nation. But one of the things that you see is that actions have a way of showing people's perspectives. Why do I say that? There is a gap in Nigeria that we take the job of the president almost as if it's a technocratic job. It's an assignment. He is the principal of a school. And we do not look at our president as our leader, because we don't seem to understand that leadership is about the relationship between the leadership and the followers.
Are you talking to the cabal that is always being referred to all the time, or all of us as a people?
No, I'm talking about the way our perception of what the office is. We look at the position of the president as an office, not as a leadership position. You see, the difference is this. Let me explain what I mean by that. Leaders recognize that the other side of leadership is the followership. And when you lead a nation, your people are the followership, not the government. The government is actually your tool of leadership. Government is your vehicle of leadership. So every institution we have, like the presidency, the Senate, the House of Rep, are all vehicles by which leadership is delivered to the people of Nigeria. So leadership is actually a contract between the leaders and the people. Now, our challenge in Nigeria is that somehow we seem to think that leadership is a position of power and authority granted to one person or a group of persons, whoever they may be. Therefore, their accountability is within that group. You see, that's where the situation arises. So, either within that group or within that select, elevated elite. So, what you have as a situation in Nigeria, actually, which has been reflected in what has happened in the last 6 months, has been the people have been the ones who are the owners of the leader. And the owners have actually been ignored in the transactions that have taken place, fundamentally. So, you have a situation where the leader, in quote, official leader, I always call it de facto leader, as a president of the country, is ill. And all of us sympathize. Everybody can fall ill. All of us have been ill at one time or the other. But he's out of the country, and we, the people, are actually kept completely in the dark. We have no idea what's happening to him, so the rumor mill has its field. We have no idea what's supposed to happen, so everything runs the way it is. And apparently, there is not an awareness that their actions end up influencing the rest of us. I'll give you a simple example. Whenever a leader, the president of the country, or the leader of any organization, something goes wrong, or like even a father in a home, it creates an instability in the thinking of the people behind, because they can't make long-term plans. And the idea that government is an entity is not totally true, it's only a partial truth. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that every institution is a shadow of one man.
When you hear submissions by his special advisor on media saying that pictures of the president together with the governors is the best that Nigerians can have, while Nigerians on the other hand feel that perhaps if you can take a picture, it doesn't cost you anything more to have a video sent to us and the president say his words to talk to the Nigerian people. How much of that has been able to erode this line of thoughts that you have and building confidence along that as well?
That's really where the problem is. It's almost as if we are being treated to a picture file. And in fact, the reality is, if people, that's what has led to all the rumor mills. Those who have a more suspicious mindset ask themselves, if the president can talk, which I have no reason to doubt that he can, then why doesn't he do it? The easiest way to take out a lie is to present the truth. I mean, if somebody, for example, a few months ago, I was very amused when the Minister for Defense in Cote d'Ivoire was said to have been abducted by militants or whoever they said. And it comes up 2 days later and said there was no truth in that fact. And I asked, the simple way to have proven that was that when the rumors were going on that you were abducted, come and present yourself to the press. Then we know you were not abducted. Or tell us where you were for the last 2 days.
So you could have been abducted and released in 2 days.
It was released in 2 days, which has already happened. So I'm saying that at the end of the day, I think it's either of two things that's going on in government, or three things. One, that there are things that we don't know that are happening, which is the worst case scenario. Two, that those who are managing the process themselves seem to not know how to manage the communication with the public. And that leads to the third one, which is likely that for some reason somebody thinks the public does not have the right to know. Now, the two extremes are not good. I would hope it was the middle one, which is even bad enough on its own. Because if our president has leaders, people around who don't know how to manage the communication with the people, then that's horrible. But the other two are non-tenable, because it means that the people are not respected. The president is our leader. In fact, one of the things I find amazing is that there is a lack of awareness in Nigeria that when a man holds office, he is accountable to his constituency. I don't know whether I have not talked to the president, so I don't know what his thinking is. But somewhere along the line, somebody needs to say, listen, Mr. President, or whoever you are, those who are in government, this man is our president. Whether you voted for him or not, he is my president.
There's another school.
I love him.
Another theory.
As long as he's president.
Another theory that people bandy, they say, look, well, yes, on paper we may say those around him should be able to point out certain things, but they also then ask, what if they're pointing these things out, and perhaps the person they're pointing it out to says, this is what I want to do. I brought you here, but I don't have to take your advice.
Absolutely. It's actually one of the privileges of authority is that advisors advise and you take the decision. That's why ultimately the blame goes to the president. I know that a lot of people have, out of sympathy, out of many have said, Mr. President is being unfairly attacked. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that job comes along with the right to criticize. If I stay in my house now, nobody can come to my house as a private citizen and ask me why I'm not explaining my actions, because I don't owe you any responsibility. But as the president of my nation, as a matter of fact, as my president, let me get personal, he's my president. He's not just the president of Nigeria, I'm Nigeria. As my president, I have the right to walk to him and say, Mr. President, can I have an idea what's going on? For a number of reasons. Number one, it allows me to make a plan for my future. Number two, it allows me to say to myself, even if I want to go and pray for him, let me give an example. To allow to say to God, my president needs prayers, can we help him? It allows me, number three, to be able to say, okay, these are the future and these are the things that are going. Then I have an idea. You see, uncertainty as a fact, let's take all the emotions out of it. Let's take all the sentiments out of it. Uncertainty is bad for any group, any organization, any situation. I mean, just let's take it out of Nigeria and take the US, for example. The continuous criticism of the Obamacare by the Trump administration, the continuous haranguing of it, the continuous idea of repeal and whatever the nonsense they are talking about at the end of the day, leads to premiums going high. Because the insurance companies cannot make projections for tomorrow, because they're not sure whether that policy will be in place next year or 2 years' time. And once you are not sure, the market begins to punish the people. So that's why leadership is such an important, John Maxwell says everything rises and falls on leadership. And once leadership is aware of the impact its actions take on the people, it changes a lot of things and it affects the way
Do you agree with those who then say, well, yes, John Maxwell may say that, but they think that everything rises and falls with the way leaders are chosen, with the electoral process, because they don't actually feel accountable to the people as a result of how they come in, because it's easier for you to go through the eye of a needle.
I think ultimately...
To recall someone, for instance.
No, I think ultimately leadership will always... The process of getting leadership, or men in position of leadership, will never be perfect. I mean, the US is a classic example, fundamentally. I mean, the US has a Brexit, and all the things that happen in Europe have given us class A examples that we can bring to the classroom and say, this is an example that, however, I mean, I was just talking to my daughter as I was coming along, that there were things that the founders of the United States assumed human behavior would allow you to maintain. But they are finding out there's a president who is now asking his aides whether he cannot pardon himself. Nobody imagined that there would come a president one day who would think that if I'm found guilty, I would just pardon myself.
Sorry to jump in. Is it about it never being perfect, or the extent to which the people actually know, really and truly, that they are in control?
I think that has the people's knowledge of their being in control is part of it. But I also think that one of the biggest problems you have is whenever a mass of people have to take a decision, they do not have the skills to analyze. So what they end up voting for is a hope that the integrity of the man they have chosen will end up overriding their own weaknesses in selection, ultimately. Because whatever our electoral process is, no Nigerian goes to the ballot box with the expectation that this man I'm going to vote for is going to mess me up. Ultimately, they may collect money to vote, but they're also collecting money because at the back of their mind is the feeling that the man who is generous enough to give them money when he gets into office is not going to be a bad person. Nobody goes to vote for a man that you know is going to kill you, ultimately. So there's a problem with whatever leadership process you have. There's always an inherent idea that the system itself, take with the parties in Nigeria, PDP, APC, we expect that by the time they've gone through their internal processes, which has been set up, whatever the weaknesses of the process, they will come up with a candidate that has some level of integrity and capacity of whatever sort to hold office. Now we expect that the man, that's why we have in our constitution restriction on what the man will be, we expect that the man's own internal compass and antenna will ensure that the right decisions are made when he gets there. We're finding that it's not always true. That's what I was telling my daughter, that the US, for example, felt no president should run more than 2 terms, but it was not in the constitution. Then Roosevelt comes and runs 4 terms. And on the 3rd term, he's actually sick when he's running for the 4th term and dies in office.